welcome back again to the Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem podcast. I'm Silver, and our co host is back.
Yay!
She is.
I don't know. No, chaotic.
Missed you last episode. It's kind of quiet to record to myself.
No funnies.
No funnies. It was funny.
There was some funnies.
Yeah, it was just sad monsters. It cries itself to death.
It's rough.
This one is kind of sad. There's some slight mention of animal abuse in the beginning, but it kind of gets his revenge. Today's monster, we're talking about the Ossaert.
Okay.
The Ossaert was once an ordinary dog. This is just kind of the backstory of it. It was once an ordinary dog that belonged to his owner, Bornius. We're in 1675. Who lived who died in he lived in 1675 to 1617 to
Stop
16.
There's numbers somewhere.
Okay, he lived from 1617 to 1675 is what I was trying. Numbers are. He's not important. He's a dick. He abused his dog.
No, fuck this guy.
Yeah. The owner was known for his cruelty, and the Ossaert found no peace even in the afterlife. And neither did his owner, because they say when the dog, Ossaert, died, he ended up haunting this guy and killing him. And then they both haunted the same house.
Oh, shit.
Until the house was finally demolished, which kind of freed the Ossaert to be free and go haunt and disturb other people.
Right.
No one really cares what happened to the owner's ghost. This was in Kloosterzande. I probably mispronouncing that, but it was demolished in 1856. The building was. And ever since then, the Ossaert became a notorious water demon, both in Zeeland, in Gelderland, and parts of Belgium. Most prominently, he appears in the form of a black dog with fiery eyes. It is said that he takes the shape of a rabbit, horse, or donkey as well.
Okay.
And that he can expand in size, so he can grow in size and whatnot. Others say as he appears as a bull with a human head, always pulling heavy chains where he goes. Some people even describe him as a blue light, or having a blue light around him.
Okay.
Fishermen have an understanding that they're to offer fish to him whenever they get their first haul. Not really sure if that is to actually hand it to a dog or throw it back into the water, or if he just appears every time you catch a fish. Otherwise, he'll trick you, because he is technically he's a water demon, but he is also known. He's part of a group called the Tormentors, kind of like tricksters, but not as nice. Tricksters aren't really as nice either.
I mean, it's kind of in the name.
Yeah, but if they don't offer him the fish, Ossaert will ruin all their catches for the entire day, or week, or month, or however long he feels. He has a tendency to ambush people late at night, pushing drunk people in the water, which you would think maybe they're just drunk.
Right.
And he also has a habit, I would say, of jumping on the backs of unsuspecting passerbys and laugh as he forces them to their knees His victims would have to endure this until the break of dawn. For whatever reason, the person wanted to provoke the Ossaert, he could be summoned. So there's a summoning phrase if you want to summon him to you.
So he's just Victor from DBD.
Yes,
Yes.
but a dog.
But a dog. I mean, Victor's questionable.
Yeah.
Victor's question. But yeah, but a dog. But yeah, like he just jumps on your back and it's just a whole nuisance.
Does he weigh you down to your knees?
I mean, realistically, probably. I mean, if I had a small demon thing that jumped on me and screeched like that, I would imagine that there would be force to my knees at that point. But I mean, in the game, no, you just run around and squish him and like throw him down. But it's just the point, like just nuisances.
Yeah. He has some sort of gravity power, so when he jumps on your back, he increases his weight.
Wow, the audacity.
He just likes squishing people that way. He likes free piggyback rides, but no one can withstand his weight.
It's rude.
Would you like me to try to say the summoning phrase, or should we avoid that just in case?
I would avoid that. As much as I'd love to see it happen to you from across the screen, I feel like we should avoid that.
Okay. Should I say it in English? Because the English one, it sounds really weird. I don't
Yeah,
think
go for it in English. Go for it.
Okay, because I can't really speak Dutch. Dutch is what it's in. Okay, so there's two of them. I got translated. One is Greek, flu, gray, toothless, and sleeveless.
Beautiful. It sounds like somebody looked at some household items.
Yes. Or another one is Greek, flu, gray, toothless, and a sleeve. So you either get him with
A sleeve,
a
not
sleeve.
multiple sleeves, just a sleeve.
Well, one's sleeveless and then just one's a sleeve.
Ah, I got you. Makes sense.
There's a couple ways to get him off your back if he jumps on him. The first way is moving out of his restricted area because he was actually caught and trapped by some monks. And his restricted area was a forest in Belgium, and he couldn't actually leave this forest. But so if you're in the forest and jumps on your back, just leave it and he'll jump off. Or
Okay.
was to pray a lot. You could pray a lot and he might jump off. Or stop at every chapel along your way and turn right at every turn.
Okay. All right. I'm following.
The prayer for it, or the nursery rhyme at the time, was Ossaert, may I go past the chapel? Is Mr. Ossaert not at home? The nursery rhyme I found.
Okay. Interesting.
He also has some special powers. We mentioned the shape changing, jumping on back, changing the weight. He can actually summon other creatures, which I have in a story of him doing. He can summon weerwolven and Nachtmerries, which, okay, so this is kind of is like a tier. So the Ossaert's up top, then you got weerwolven and Nachtmerries, and the weerwolven are male witches that can transform into wolves by putting on either skins of wolves or some sort of ointment they get from the devil. And they like to jump on people's backs as well and ride them around. They don't transform unwillingly. They can transfer whenever they want. Transform whenever they want. The female witches turn themselves into Nachtmerries or Nachtmares. They can change into any size they wanted. So they can sneak into a house at night. She would tread out of her body and become a translucent vampire, oftentimes riding an insect towards her destination. By riding a living creature, she depleted their energy. Her targets were oftentimes human. She favored horses. That's another piggyback loving creature.
I'm not understanding like the pattern here. Like why? why choose piggybacking? Like, is it just convenient for them? Is it like a personal choice?
I'm not really sure because every single one of these tormentors I looked up, they all like to jump on their backs. Not really sure why.
Maybe because you don't see it coming or something?
It is very possible. But then when the werewolf dies, he becomes something called a kludde, which is pretty much just a werewolf in the entire werewolf again, but wrapped in chains that likes to jump on your back and pretty much similar to the Ossaert. And if you kill the kludde, though, so you can kill werewolven and get a kludde, but if you kill a kludde, you get 7 more kluddes. He just, yeah, he just regenerates into 7 more.
What the fuck?
The only way to stop the werewolven and the kludde is by throwing a handkerchief at them, because they have to sit there and tear the handkerchief apart and count each thread piece by piece.
What the fuck?
And the kludde can also shape change into ravens, snakes, cats, dogs, bats, trees. They like to trick people into taking the wrong paths and such like that, and throwing them in the ponds, like the Ossaert.
Because why not?
A couple stories I can read off. You want me to?
Go for it.
Okay. This one's called Blomart and the Ossaert. Blomart? Fisherman Blomart was a smuggler who once encountered the Ossaert. After fishing in his area, he got home, baked a couple fish in the fireplace, and went to bed. The following morning, he found that half of his fish were gone, and that something had left a wet mark in the shape of a big claw in the ashes. Blomart remembered the old verse, but wasn't fazed by its. He thought of a way to outsmart the Ossaert. That night, the weather was stormy, and the Blomart left the fireplace smoldering. Again, Ossaert's claw reached through the chimney for a free meal. However, the Ossaert retracted his claws. The fish were all deviled. Spoiled, I'd imagine. Blomart
Yeah.
anticipated the big claw of the Ossaert would be rooting through the ashes, so he decided to hide horse turds at the bottom of the hearth.
Oh my fucking god. The audacity.
The Ossaert did not expect this and was caught by surprise. The big water demon lost his balance and plunged into the water. Blomart deemed himself victorious and went out to fish the very next day. He threw out his net and could not believe his luck when he pulled them back in. They were heavier than ever before. After a lot of pain and effort, the nets almost surfaced, but when Blomart laid eyes on his catch, he was surprised the rope slipped from his hand. He was so surprised that the rope slipped from his hand. He didn't catch fish at all. They were horse turds. The Ossaert laughed, was all he heard over the water.
That's awful.
Turd for a turd.
I guess.
That was kind of his water demon, water-ish story. I got one that kind of entails the summoning aspect of him as well. It was called the Demon of Hogdual. Hogedubel.
Yeah, I can't help you there.
A tale from the Veluwe speaks of a farmer from Nunspeet who traveled to Weasel for his firewood. But as soon as his cart was loaded, he noticed his poor horse had become sick. The man had no other choice but to get his horse looked after. He visited a farmer and asked if there was a chance he could deliver the firewood to Nunspeet. The farmer called out his servant, who saddled a black horse and went in his steed. It was night when the servant headed home. through the area of Hogdevel. He recalled tales of a water demon who used to live in Undermere. The beast was known to terrorize the area until a holy monk drove him back to Hogdevel, where he was sealed for 99 years. People claimed they had seen him, but the servant didn't believe any of it. His neighbor supposedly provoked the demon, which is how the heavy monster had jumped on his back. He would not let go, and the man thought he might die, but managed to carry the weight outside of Hogdevel, where the Ossaert could not follow. The servant was not impressed by this tale. He opened his mouth and spoke those dreaded words. The words to summon him. A flame rose from the ground with a loud boom. His horse pranced and the servant almost fell. There in the distance he could see the demon come their way with incredible speed. Quickly the servant moved his horse into gear and managed to get outside of Hogdevel before the Ossaert could catch up. I was gonna say, how you put your horse into gear? It pretty much just means move.
I mean, like kicking their sides and stuff, putting them into like gallop as opposed to like trot.
Yeah.
I was imagining a shifter on a horse though, so like you're not alone.
It actually had a motorcycle, but they just called it a horse.
Wow.
Upon noticing Ossaert could no longer follow, the young man turned his horse and laughed in his face. The Ossaert retaliated with a loud roar, which summoned green-eyed weerwolven from the road Higgin. The servant was done laughing and feared for his life. It was still a long ways away to Weasel, and the wolves were on his tail all the way there. Upon arrival, he immediately barred the doors inside the barn. He took notice of how much his poor horse was sweating. It looked like it had just come out of the water. Before going off to bed, the servant thanked his horse and tended to his needs. A mounted horse head hung from the barn. This in order to keep Nachtmerries out. It was no use, however. By morning, the innocent horse was dead. When the servant told the farmer what happened, he was fired immediately, and the farmer was furious.
I just like we've messed with some gremlin energy. We've talked about some gremlin types.
Yeah.
But this is probably one of the most inconvenient. Like the only step up from being inconvenient would be like if this guy was going to take my remotes and take the batteries out of them. Just like every time I put batteries in. Like he's very inconvenient in all aspects.
Why inconvenient? Are you talking about the guy in the store or the Ossaert?
The Ossaert.
Yeah.
He's just an inconvenience. Like he's not even really terrifying. He's just an asshole.
Yeah, pretty much. He does. Yeah, he jumps on your back, weighs you down. If you anger him, he'll just send werewolves and nightmares after you.
My God.
If you kill the werewolf, then they become a klude, and if you kill them, they become 7 more kludes. It's just you don't win. He's stealing your fish, and you put a horse turn in there.
Putting shit everywhere. I just, he hurts. He hurts. He's just gremlin energy, 110% all the way around.
Imagine that fisherman. All he was catching was horse turds, and back in the 1800s, that's probably all he ate was fish, so he had nothing to eat. He shouldn't have put a horse turd with a water demon. You don't mess with demons, really.
For sure.
Especially if you make fun of one that's trapped in a forest, but has servants that he could summon that can go out of the forest. And in that story, they had the werewolves summon the Nachtmerries that could shapeshift, or they ride and drain energy.
Shall we progress into mayhem?
We shall. Mayhem, 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 mayhem. Looks like you got some mayhem going on over there.
The baby's being cute. I got distracted.
He's
Um,
something to be distracted by.
he probably is an Ossaert. Okay. I would like to know your side of mayhem first because I have a couple ideas.
Okay. I think Ossaert would be pretty mayhemy, not really deadly mayhemy, because there's at least two instances of him being restricted to a location, one being the forest and the other being an ocean for 99 years. I don't know if that's because the monks could only find him for 99 years at a time. It means it can be done, but he can summon things to work outside of his restricted zone. But he can also be summoned. So I think I'm gonna guess is I'm just going to go with there's only one Osart. I think it could cause a lot of mayhem because there's no real good way to get rid of him, and he's a tormentor. So I think he just likes tormenting people. It'd be more of a local scale. I don't think it really go global unless main medias pick it up and pick up the actual Dutch summoning phrase.
I agree.
You could get the Ostark to your side. Like if you have a friendly water demon person that the Ostark could become like a puppy to and be in control of it, you could summon werewolves to go attack your enemies, or Nachtmerries to ride all their horses or people to. What are your ideas?
I'm getting like I understand that there's only one, like, you know, statistically, but mayhem wise, for my sake, like my head went to like the Magwise, like a multiplication process, and then like becoming like gremlins. I could see a very gremlin-esque situation with this creature. A little bit of a takeover of town, a little bit of chaos everywhere, and suddenly the whole town's burning down in an absolute chaos.
Yeah, I can
Know what I
kind of
mean?
see it. Yeah, because you just keep multiplying, summoning more monsters, and itself being there's actually no way to kill that I've seen. So we'd just be have to stuck with imprisoning them to an area.
But yeah, seal them away for sure.
We'll just send them down to the Amazon rainforest. That way no one can go in there to log it. We can use them as a deterrent.
100. Yep, 100%.
If we don't want an area destroyed, we can lock them in specific places.
The poor rainforest animals, though.
That's the thing. I have no instances of this. I have no instances of them actually eating anything. So I think the rainforest animals would be okay. I just think any people that would join in there would have issues.
Mm-hmm.
And the werewolf and the Nachtmerries are actually witches and wizards that serve under him and can be summoned. So they'd have a whole gross of plants and animals they could be with. Possibly. Or they just get magically summoned to him.
Right. I mean, yeah, and that's true.
How do you unsummon something? Do they just poof back and disappear? Or do they get left there? I'd like to imagine they just get left there. So you're walking in modern day witch and you're doing your jogging or you're doing a tarot reading for something, you just puff out in a blue smoke and now you're suddenly in the Amazon rainforest.
Rip. On a lot of levels.
You don't need a one-way flight ticket unless you get another spell to get back, but that would cause mayhem that way. Disturbing witches in the modern day, just teleporting them everywhere. I don't know. That's all the mayhem I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree with everything that was said. I think that like singularly, it would still cause a lot of mayhem and issues, but the gremlin idea, I think, would actually cause like terror, like actual like, you know, burning down craziness. I do like your idea of like confining them to like a rainforest area. I think that would be really cool. Like keep people out, make sure they don't like mess with sacred areas or cut down trees, stuff like that. Overall, like mayhem meter wise, I would say like he's pretty high up there on the mayhem end of it. Like terror, like Tarask end of it, maybe not so much. But definitely a nuisance and an annoyance enough that he would be pretty high up there.
I agree with that. I agree with that rating. More towards the chaos end than the silver end.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, should we start round blah 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 blah?
Wow.
Should we start rounding down?
I think so.
I guess before we sign off here, I'd like to give a couple shout outs again to our two patrons. I said Patreons, which is the name of the site, not our what they're called, I guess. So I'd like to give a special thanks and shout out to our Mayhem Rank patrons, Thor and Mondi, again for joining the Patreon.
Thank you guys so much for the help and the donations and keeping us afloat and giving us some savings for the podcast itself. It really is all going to go towards making sure that we can do better for you guys and make things improved. And if anybody else would be interested, make sure you visit the Patreon, and you guys did a special role in the Discord and all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you guys check it out.
Yes. Roll the outro.
Join us again next Monday on Monsters Missing Mayhem, found on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Anchor.fm. Silver and Chaotic talk about how monsters and myths came to be and how they would be received in modern day society. Follow, like, and subscribe to support. Also find the podcast on Twitter and Discord with the links below to keep up to date with the newest merch and activity. Besides, who knows what mayhem we will get into next.